Now that we've got this sized and grouped, let's go ahead and copy this into our other document. So Command-C, Control-C, put it into memory, and then use your Command-tilde shortcut to take you through however many documents you have open and go back to your CMYK file, all right? Now I'm just going to close up my Pathfinder panel here and come over to the layers and make sure that we have our logos layer unlocked, because that's where obviously the logos are going to exist. Now we want to make sure that when the logos come in, we can align them on the correct artboard. So remember these processes. Let's go across to the artboards panel here and double click A3 poster so that artboard is highlighted. And then we can hit paste to bring in our logo, and that'll drop down in the center. Whilst that's highlighted, let's come up here to the control panel and make sure that align to artboard is highlighted. Remember we used align to selection a little while ago. So align to artboard here, and then we can choose horizontal center. And at this point, let's align to the bottom of the document, okay? Then we can always nudge afterwards. That's easy enough to do. Now, likewise, we want a logo over here on the A4, all right? So go ahead and double click your A4 sheet. Once again, paste the logo in. Our artboard is already selected, so we can go ahead and say center, bottom, and that'll drop it down just fine, okay? Now, once we have that one selected, let's go back to our original here, shift select that, and I'm just going to use the arrow key here to nudge that up a few millimeters, okay? So it kind of sits in the middle here of our mountain shape that we defined using those direct selection shortcuts earlier on, and the other one sort of follows suit. Now, we do also want one over here in our flyer, so once again, double click to select that artboard, and then we can reduce down our preview size and see what's going on, and then I'm going to paste that graphic in. Now here's an instance where we could use our draw behind functionality again, all right? I'm just going to zoom in on that center. We need this logo to sit dead center in this square, but remember, this square is locked on the backdrop color layer, and it's also one square that's inside a grid, so it's an isolation function, if you like, for us to select that. Well, we do have our snap to point functions available, our smart guides, and also our draw behind, so we may as well just draw a quick rectangle, use it to align, and then delete it, okay? So quick little studio shortcut here, go to your rectangle tool, make sure that our draw behind mode is selected because we're on the logos layer and we want it behind the logo just so we can see what's going on, and then position yourself on the corner of that object. Your anchor point will snap. We can drag down here and snap into that corner as well. It doesn't matter what color this is, it's just the fact that we have an object there. So go back to your main selection tool, shift and click on the logo to select that as well, and then simply click on the central square to make that our key align object, all right? Now come up to the panel and say align center and also vertical align center. Then you can deselect, click on the background shape and get rid of it, and our logo now sits perfectly in the middle. Now, if we go back to viewing all pages at the same time and just collapse our layers here for a second, we can see the logos are all perfectly positioned, but at this point, 30 millimeters is too big. Now, I'm not saying that you would have them the same size on all pieces of artwork here, but for this, I think it works that they're all fairly consistent. However, 30 is too big. You now know the multiple ways to scale something using the scale tool or free transform. There are many ways to do it, but how about scaling them all at the same time by the same amount? Okay, this is a nice little option. Let's make sure that we select all three icons together, okay? Select the first one, hold down the shift key and select the other two. And then this time we're going to come up to the object menu, go down to transform and come across down to transform each. Now I briefly mentioned this earlier on, this is the ideal time to use it. What transform each does is it allows us to apply scale or move or rotation, and indeed all together, transformations to multiple selected items, okay? So we've got three logos here. What we're telling it to do in this instance is drop down to, let's maybe do 95% on both horizontal and vertical axes, okay? And in fact, let's make this a little bit more extreme just so you can see the change being applied. 40 by 40, okay? I've got preview turned on down here, and you can see in the background that all of these have now shrunk down to 40% of their original size based on their own anchor point, okay? Remember, if you went down to the scale tool and double clicked and brought up the scale dialog box and said 40%, the anchor point would be somewhere here in the center because it's the center of a selected area, and there would basically be a rectangle defining all of these three. So this is a really cool way to do it. Now, an additional function to this, remember we've got used to being able to do progressive scaling where we choose a certain percentage and then continue to nudge that value down until we get the right size. Well, transform each even allows us to do that. Let's make sure we change this to 90% on both axes, okay? go ahead and click the OK button, and just as you would expect, Command D or Control D on the PC to duplicate that functionality will allow us to nudge the logo size down a further 10% every time. Isn't that just the coolest thing? All right. So get it to whatever size you need it to. I think something that ensures it's visible and isn't too small and also sits comfortably in this black shape is absolutely fine. When you're done, we can deselect, and as again, we've made a good number of changes here, so go ahead and save your document, and it's starting to really come together now.